Toxic motivation is one of the most dangerous illusions in modern business. It sounds inspiring, it looks energizing, it feels positive, yet it slowly destroys teams from the inside. It is not an open conflict. It is not pressure in its raw form. It is something worse, a culture that trains people to stop seeing reality. In companies infected with toxic motivation, people learn to play roles. The employee plays the role of the person who can always give more. The manager plays the role of the leader who must always inspire. The executive plays the role of someone who never makes mistakes. And while everyone performs on this corporate stage, the business loses the only thing capable of keeping it alive: clarity. The problem is not optimism itself. The problem is when optimism replaces analysis. The problem is not energy. The problem is when energy replaces direction. The problem is not motivational speeches. The problem is when those speeches replace truth. Toxic motivation erases important words from the company's vocabulary. Words like, "we won't make it," "we miscalculated," "this won't work under these conditions." And when these words disappear, the ability to correct course disappears with them. A business without honest information is a ship without navigation. It may be loud, it may look impressive from the outside, but it is still moving blindly. One iceberg, the one everyone didn't want to mention, is enough to end the story. This is why real power inside teams belongs not to the loudest, but the most accurate. Not to those who burn the brightest, but to those who think the clearest. Not to those who look motivated, but to those who can identify reality before it hits the wall. And here, a certain pattern of thinking naturally appears, not as a slogan, not as feel-good philosophy, but as a survival mechanism. A mindset that strips away illusions and brings people back to the ground. It doesn't say, be strong. It says, be precise. It doesn't say, believe in yourself. It says, look at the facts. It doesn't say, push harder. It says, act within reality. But how do you move from toxic optimism to clarity? Not with a motivational speech, not with a rebranding deck, with something colder and far more practical, a step-by-step shift in thinking. First step, remove the romance from work. Honesty doesn't make you weak, it makes you professional. Try, for just one day, evaluating tasks not through "I must deliver," but through "under which conditions is this possible?" No sugarcoating, no drama, just neutral observation. This is where clarity begins. Next step, classify everything you do. There is work that moves the company. There is work that is pure waste. There is work you do out of habit, and there is work you do out of fear. Toxic cultures rely heavily on the last two. Once you start seeing them, you stop being a depleted resource and become someone who manages their own output. Then, introduce micro-truths. You don't need heroism, you need consistency. Once a week, say one grounded, factual sentence that pulls the team back to reality. There's a structural bottleneck here. This deadline doesn't match the actual workload. We're missing essential information to make this decision. One honest sentence can anchor the entire team more effectively than 100 motivational speeches. Next, change the questions you ask yourself. Instead of, "Can I handle this?" ask, "What is the actual cost of doing this?" Instead of, "Why am I falling behind?" ask, "Which conditions made this unrealistic?" Instead of, "I failed again," ask, "Where did the plan diverge from reality?" This is not psychology. This is engineering. Engineering of thought. Another step, learn to make a cold forecast. Once a week, ask yourself, what will collapse if nothing changes? Not to scare yourself, to prevent avoidable disasters. People who forecast lead. People who hope burn out. Now, the leaders. In toxic cultures, a leader becomes an emotional generator. In healthy cultures, a leader becomes a source of clarity. The first real act of leadership is not inspiration, it is legalizing truth. Tell the team facts matter more than enthusiasm, and then prove it with your reactions. A team listens to your behavior, not your words. Next, protect the truth tellers. Those who speak uncomfortable facts are not creating problems. They are revealing the problems that already exist. In weak environments, such people are punished. In strong environments, they form the backbone.
Then, remove the romance from teamwork. Stop calling the company a family. Families rely on emotions. Teams rely on structure. Families forgive everything. Businesses collapse when they do that. A strong team knows roles, boundaries, responsibilities, and respects reality more than feelings.
Finally, reset the language of the company. Language shapes thinking. Thinking shapes decisions. Decisions shape results. So the language must be accurate, colder, more aligned with actual conditions.
Less raise the bar. More align capacity with goals. Less will power through. More what's the realistic configuration. Less everyone together. More each person owns their domain.
Once a team begins to speak clearly, it begins to think clearly. Once it begins to think clearly, it begins to act effectively. Once it acts effectively, the noise disappears, leaving only movement that has direction. And this is where the future unmistakably points. Not toward companies built on hype, not toward teams built on emotion, but toward systems built on clarity, where an employee can tell the truth without fear, where a manager asks questions instead of performing enthusiasm, where reality is not the enemy, but the guide.
Because in a world that grows more complex each year, survival won't belong to the most motivated. It will belong to the most accurate, the ones who interpret reality faster, the ones who correct course earlier, the ones who stop pretending and start seeing. True strength is not endless enthusiasm. It is the ability to say, here is what's real, here is what's possible, here is what we do next.
In a world where everyone wants to look strong, the real power belongs to those who dare to be clear.